Caitlin Clark finally breaks her silence after the first 2 days of WNBA free agency frenzy. And after watching what the Indiana Fever did in the first 48 hours, it's genuinely hard to argue with her. Day 1 alone brought all WNBA teammate Lexie Mitchell back on a supermax, Monique Billings signed as a power forward that fits into Caitlin's style of play, a TikTok with Lexie Hull that nobody saw coming but everybody was expecting, and Tyasha Harris signed as the perfect backup for Caitlin. But the move everyone was watching for, the one fans were sweating over, didn't drop until day 2, the one about Sophie Cunningham. And the way it unfolded tells you everything about how this front office and their honorary GM, Caitlin Clark, thinks. What Indiana Fever free agency move do you think was the best? Let me know down in the comments below and tell us why.
Tell a friend to tell a friend. She's back!
What does it actually mean to re-sign someone who stuck around through a 5-win season when she could have walked out the door and found a better situation somewhere else? Because that's the real question with Lexie Mitchell, and it's worth sitting with for a second before we just move on to the contract number.
When the Indiana Fever's 2025 season came to a close, Lexie Mitchell stood in rarefied air. Second all-time in franchise history in scoring, first in points per game, and first in threes made. Her 2025 season was her best yet. An all-star, first team All-WNBA, and 5th in the MVP voting. And Lexie Mitchell is back.
Before Caitlin Clark arrived in Indiana, Mitchell ground through some genuinely rough years. The 2022 Fever won 5 games. 5. Mitchell stayed anyway, kept putting up points on a roster that wasn't built to win, and never made noise about wanting out. Then, 2025 happened, and Mitchell earned first-team All-WNBA honors and finished 5th in MVP voting, while averaging 20.2 points per game. So when the Fever re-signed her on day 1 of free agency, it wasn't just a front office move. It was the payoff for years of loyalty that nobody required from her.
2026 will be Mitchell's 9th with the Indiana Fever. Only Tamika Catchings has worn the Fever uniform longer. She finished 3rd in the league in scoring in 2025 and 1st in the WNBA in threes made, and doing so shooting at an efficient nearly 40% from distance.
The contract she signed is a 1-year supermax worth $1.4 million, making her the highest paid player in Fever franchise history. 1 year. Not 2, not 3. And that choice tells you exactly where Indiana thinks they are right now. Because a player who wants long-term security signs a multi-year deal, and a player who thinks her team is genuinely close to winning it all signs 1 year and bets on the outcome. Mitchell picked 1 year, and the Fever let her, which means both sides believe 2026 is when this thing happens.
But her numbers aren't just eye-popping, they're vital to Indiana's success. The pairing of Caitlin Clark and Lexie Mitchell in the backcourt has already proven to be the WNBA's best. Their skill sets feeding off each other perfectly. Clark's vision helps make an already lethal three-point shooter even more dangerous, and Mitchell's spacing opens up the floor even further for Clark.
Now let's talk about Monique Billings, because casual fans might not know her name yet, but that's going to change fast. Billings signed with Indiana as a power forward, and unlike a lot of free agency additions where the fit is theoretical until training camp, her chemistry with Clark is already documented in real games. At the FIBA World Cup qualifying tournament in Puerto Rico in March 2026, Billings played alongside Clark on the U.S. national team, and Clark found her repeatedly for easy baskets, with Billings finishing at the rim at an elite rate. Her first points ever in a USA uniform came directly off a Clark assist. That's not a coincidence, that's 2 players who already understand each other's timing.
Monique Billings on a tear.
Billings has been fantastic.
She has been relentless on both ends. Billings asking for it, puts it in.
Billings can move well with and without the basketball.
Billings in transition. They're going to count the bucket and the foul.
Then a great finish from Billings.
Billings snapping the net, and Billings connects on a 3.
She also played with Lexie Mitchell at Hive Basketball Club in Unrivaled, so she's not walking into a locker room full of strangers. Two of Indiana's biggest names already know her game, already trust her reads, and Billings knows it. After signing, she said she immediately felt valued and wanted by the team and the fans, and Mitchell backed that up, sharing that Billings told her directly, "We got a chance to win it. I want you to win it for us." That's not something a player says when she's just taking a paycheck.
D and the 3 of Monique Billings.
Oh, Billings, that's a big bucket. Racing back and it's swung by Mo Billings.
Billings with the touch of the basket.
For the lead, Mo Money Billings.
What makes Billings such a natural fit is that she doesn't need to change anything about how Indiana plays to be useful. In 2025 with the Golden State Valkyries, she converted 81% of her shots from 0 to 3 feet, meaning when she gets the ball close to the basket, she finishes. She runs the floor, she doesn't demand heavy touches, and she doesn't slow the pace down, which is exactly what you need from a power forward in a system built around Clark pushing in transition and finding cutters before defenses can recover. Stephanie White was an assistant on the Team USA staff during the Puerto Rico tournament, so she watched this connection develop in person and then went and signed Billings the first day she legally could.
Indy, what's good? It's your girl Mo Bills. I am so thrilled to be a part of the Indiana Fever, ready to get to work with my team, championship mindset, mentality, hustle, grit, all of those things that Indiana basketball stands for. I'm excited to be a part of it, excited to play in front of the amazing fans as well. And y'all got to put me on the food spots in Indy. Y'all know I like to eat. Let me know where the spots are. I'll see y'all soon. Let's get it.
Clark had her backcourt anchor locked in and her frontcourt energy piece secured, and day one still had more coming. Picture this. Caitlin Clark and Lexie Hull are at the Masters in Augusta, Georgia, and instead of just watching golf, they're filming a TikTok. Clark kicks it off saying, "Tell a friend to tell a friend," and Hull finishes with, "She's back." That's how Indiana announced Hull's return. Not through a press release, not through a team statement, but through a lip-sync video that immediately went everywhere.
I've loved my years here in Indiana. I built a life here, and I love this franchise. I love the people. I love the fans.
The game is completely different when Lexie's on the floor.
I mean, she's just hard-nosed, and her toughness is an example for us.
Cambridge is loud and crazy and electric. It's not only us fighting out there. We know we have this huge support system behind us, and we definitely do feed off of their energies.
And buried in the comments, Clark tagged Sophie Cunningham with, "@Sophie, hey, what's up? What are you doing?" Fans caught it instantly. And just like that, day one ended with one signing confirmed and one very deliberate question mark left hanging in the air. Let's talk about what Hull actually brings. Because signing her on a multi-year team-friendly deal looks simple on paper, but makes a lot more sense when you understand what she did just to get through last season. 2 black eyes, elbows to the face, injuries that would have parked most players on the bench for weeks, and Hull kept playing through all of it because that's genuinely who she is. She doesn't disappear when games get physical or when the opponent starts targeting her specifically. And that toughness is exactly what a team built around Clark needs from a wing player who's out there competing every single night. Beyond the grit, Hull can guard the 2, 3, and 4, which gives the Fever the kind of lineup flexibility that's genuinely hard to find at a team-friendly price. She shoots, she defends, she doesn't fade in big moments. She and Cunningham combined to account for over 50% of Indiana's total steals alongside Clark. So the defensive impact of keeping this group together is real and documented. When Hull said, "Indy has been my home and we still have unfinished business," that wasn't something a PR team wrote for her. That's a player telling you plainly why she took less money to stay, because the mission isn't done and she wants to finish it here.
She's just a hard player to take off the floor because of how hard she plays. She's not just an energy player, she's a toughness player.
Her energy, her tenacity, the way she affects the game. She's our best defensive player. I think she's one of the best defensive players in the league.
Lexie knows that we believe in her. We're going to count on her for what she brings to the table every night.
2 in the corner. Hull, you bet. Hull knocks it away, and Hull will fire. And hit from 3.
Pass knocked away by Lexie Hull.
Lexie Hull buries it to beat the buzzer.
So then Clark drops that comment tagging Cunningham, and fans immediately started doing math. If Sophie was coming back, why wasn't she on the day one announcement list? Her Instagram was right there, with posts about hill runs, 2 miles with hills, captions about getting her mind right and betting on herself, and fans started reading that as a signal she was testing the market. The energy of those posts felt like someone preparing for something uncertain, not someone who'd already decided to stay, and that gap between the TikTok tease and an actual announcement sent people into a full spiral overnight. Here's where it gets interesting, though. Clark didn't accidentally tag Cunningham in those comments. These aren't players who find out about each other's decisions through ESPN alerts. They talk, they coordinate. And the fact that Clark publicly pulled Cunningham into the Hull announcement before anything official dropped tells you the three of them already knew exactly what was happening. Cunningham even played into it, firing back in the comments and that they'd better make up for the TikTok, which is not how someone responds when they're genuinely unsure about their future with a team.
With the signing of Lexie Hull, the Indiana Fever bring back one of the best and toughest 3-and-D players in the WNBA. The stats tell a lot of that story. Over her last 2 seasons, she's shooting exactly 40% from the three-point line, the mark of a top-tier shooter. In fact, for players that have taken at least 200 total three-pointers over the last 2 seasons, Hull is one of just 5 in the entire WNBA to shoot 40% or better.
The Tres Leches trio of Clark, Hull, and Cunningham isn't just a nickname fans made up. Clark knew fans needed to see it confirmed, and she used Hull's announcement to set up exactly that. Which meant the real question going into day 2 wasn't whether Cunningham was coming back, it was why the Fever were making everyone wait. Cunningham's deal was done before day 2 even started. The ink was basically dry, the numbers were agreed to, and the Fever knew she was coming back. So why didn't they announce it on day 1 with everyone else? Because Kelly Krauskopf and Amber Cox were sitting on it while they ran the numbers on 2 other players. And that evaluation process tells you more about how this front office operates than any press release ever could. Alana Smith and Azurá Stevens were both on the market, and both were exactly the kind of size and length that a contender wants to add next to Aaliyah Boston. Smith is a stretch 4 who can shoot and create mismatches, and Stevens is a 6'6" forward who shot 38% from 3 on 4.4 attempts per game in 2025 while averaging 12.8 points and 8.0 rebounds. On paper, either of them looks like a real upgrade. The problem was the price. Both players wanted max-level money, and the Fever had to actually sit down and figure out whether blowing that kind of cap space was worth restructuring everything they'd already built around Clark and Boston.
She might not be the only Lexie coming back to Indiana. They're messing with us. Announce those companies. Sophie, hey, what's up? What you doing? Kaylin Clark says. Lexie Hull chimes in with the camera emoji, and then Sophie responds, "The no invite is crazy. You two better make up for this horrible TikTok." Is Sophie Cunningham? Is she laying the seeds? Is she letting everybody know I'm coming back to Indiana?
Stevens ended up signing with the Chicago Sky, and Smith signed a 3-year max contract with the Dallas Wings. From Indiana's perspective, both of those deals are overpays, not because Smith or Stevens aren't good players, but because neither of them fits the Fever's specific system well enough to justify a max contract when Indiana already had a core that works. Paying max money for a player who doesn't quite fit means you've also just kneecapped your ability to add anyone else, and the Fever weren't willing to do that. Walking away from both of them freed up the cap space to finally announce Cunningham and do it without having to apologize for a thin roster everywhere else. Cunningham signed at a team-friendly rate, meaning she left money on the table to stay in Indiana. And that's a real choice from a player who averaged 12.1 points per game in 2025 and could have tested a market that would have paid her more. She bet on this group, on this season, and on what she thinks they can actually do together.
They found a way. They found a way to bring back the big 3, bring back Lexie, bring back Sophie, and Monique Billings is now on her way as well.
So now let's talk about what the guard rotation actually looks like. Because Clark, Mitchell, Hull, Cunningham, and Tiasha Harris as the backup is a genuinely deep and well-constructed group where every player already understands her role. Nobody's stepping on anybody else, and that's not an accident. Harris grew up in Noblesville, Indiana, which is about 20 miles north of Indianapolis, so coming home to play for the Fever carries real personal weight for her. She pushes pace without forcing the issue, she keeps her ego completely out of the way, and her job when Clark sits is to make sure the offense doesn't stall out, not to reinvent it. That's a player who knows exactly what she's there to do.
One thing I do know is Ty Harris is a solid backup point guard. Solid backup player. I think she was starting at times for the Connecticut Sun. She can play this game. I think she's good enough to come in and, you know, spell Caitlin Clark 8 to 10 minutes a game. Okay, come in for that 8 to 12 minutes at 12 minutes at the most, and give some quality minutes as a backup point guard. Like
Damiris Dantas, returning on a veteran minimum, fills out the front court baseline without touching what's left of the cap space. And because Indiana didn't commit max money to Smith or Stevens, they've actually got real dollars left to spend on more front court help. The Fever didn't just avoid a mistake with those two decisions, they created options for themselves that other teams who overspent simply won't have. The guard rotation is set, and it's genuinely the best Indiana has ever put together. But 5 guards and Aaliyah Boston and Monique Billings don't win a championship by themselves. Boston is exceptional, one of the best interior players in the league, but she can't anchor the paint for 40 minutes every night while also fighting through screens, protecting the rim, and cleaning up every missed shot. If refs put her in foul trouble early, and that happened more than once in 2025, the Fever needs someone behind her who can actually hold things together, not just occupy space. Last season, when key players missed time or got into foul trouble, Indiana's front court got exposed pretty fast. That's not a knock on anyone specifically, it's just what happens when your depth at that position isn't deep enough to absorb the problem. The Fever can't let that happen again in 2026, not with a roster this good everywhere else. So the names being discussed right now are Rebecca Allen, Temi Fogbinlay, Brianna Turner, and Megan Gustafson from the Las Vegas Aces.
Finally, it appears Amber Cox has a pulse, y'all. She finally doing something, getting something done, even though there's much more to do. This is great news.
Each of those players solves a slightly different version of the same problem. And the debate inside the front office isn't just about availability, it's about which version of the solution actually fits how Indiana wants to play. A traditional post scorer who needs the ball in the paint and wants to slow things down to operate would completely undercut what Billings and Clark are trying to do in transition. Billings shot 81% at the rim in 2025 because she runs the floor and catches the ball in stride rather than waiting for a set play to develop, and whoever Indiana adds next needs to work within that same framework. Gustafson keeps coming up as the most interesting name because she finishes around the rim without needing heavy touches or a specific play called for her. She stays out of the way on offense when she doesn't have the ball, which sounds like a low bar, but it's actually exactly the profile that works alongside Clark's playmaking. Because Clark doesn't need another option demanding the ball, she needs players who can convert when she finds them. Temi brings interior defense and length that could take real pressure off Boston on nights when opposing centers are physically punishing her. Turner's whole game is defense and hard screens. She doesn't need touches at all, and Allen stretches the floor with her shooting range, which keeps defenses from collapsing into the paint every time Clark drives.
Last time they went to the finals was 2015. Okay, you guys made the semis of the East last season. You had to watch from the sideline.
Yeah, it was tough.
Expectations, goals of this season, what you got for me?
I mean, we were trying to win it all last year, and that's certainly what we're trying to do this year. You know, it's a very unique situation. I think there's over 100 players in the league that are free agents. So we really only know about 5 people or 3 people that are going to be on our team next year, but I feel like we have a great core.
Indiana can actually pursue any of these players because they didn't blow their cap on Smith or Stevens. Other teams that overspent in the first 48 hours of free agency are now filling out their rosters with whoever's left on veteran minimums, and the Fever aren't in that position. They spent carefully, held their budget where it mattered, and now they've got real money available for a front court piece that actually fits, rather than just fills a spot on the roster. So imagine this version of the 2026 Fever. Billings running the floor and finishing in transition, Boston doing what she does in the mid-post and on the defensive glass, and one more front court player who either stretches the floor or protects the rim depending on what the matchup calls for. That's a front court rotation that doesn't ask Boston to be 3 players at once, and it's the version of this team that other contenders genuinely don't want to see in a playoff series. Clark's already put it plainly. They're going to sprint their way to a championship, and a front court built for pace and finishing is exactly how you actually do that.
Well, we're looking forward to watching it for sure. You guys saw that May 9th against the Dallas Wings. That'll be the first time you see Caitlin back in her Indiana Fever jersey, but they're getting ready for training camp. That starts April 19th for her. But guess what? She's not really going to go anywhere. Caitlin's going to hang around a little bit.
This 2026 Fever roster wasn't thrown together. Mitchell stayed through 5-win seasons and earned her Supermax. Hull played through 2 black eyes and signed for less than she could have gotten elsewhere. Cunningham bet on this group over a bigger payday somewhere else. Billings already knew Clark's timing before she signed. Harris already knows White's system before training camp opens. And the front office walked away from 2 max contracts that didn't fit, rather than blowing the budget to look busy. The front court still has an open spot, and whoever fills it tells you whether the Indiana Fever are chasing length or shooting. Clark's already called it. They're sprinting to a championship, and the rest of the league spent the last 48 hours watching Indiana build exactly the team to do it. What Indiana Fever free agency move do you think was the best? Let me know down in the comments below and tell us why. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.